Hi, welcome to another V's Cards video. My name is Veronika Čuić. I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in Australia. In this video, we're going to touch on these techniques. And don't worry, if you're a beginner stamper, I'll go through them with you step by step with diagrams and instructions. For this project, we're using the Pansy Patch Stamp Set, featured in the brand new catalogue. If you'd like Veronika Čuić, that's me, to be your Stampin' Up demonstrator and you live in Australia, email me expressions of interest and I'll be happy to send you this catalogue. It's my way of saying thanks to my loyal customers. Okay, so let's get down to business. The technique is called two-step stamping because you're using two different stamps to layer directly on top of each other, with the second one showing you a bit more detail. Now, I also want to point out that there are other stamps that build the flower image all together, and I'll talk you through them as we go. First, let's talk about generation stamping. Your first generation is going to be the first print you make after inking up your stamp, and then the second one you're not re-inking and it's going to obviously show up as a more faded image. And finally, you're stamping again the third time to create the third generation without re-inking. So each time it's going to give you a more faded and lighter look. So now I'm going to use the second stamp to layer on top of the first for two-step stamping. And I'm going to use the first generation on top of the first generation, and without re-inking, I'm going to use the second generation on top of second generation. So remember, I'm using the second stamp image from the stamp set on top of the first one. And finally, without re-inking, I'm going to do the third generation stamping using the second stamp. So there you have it, 1, 2 and 3. It's going to be faded more each time, but there's a bit more detail when using the second stamp. So for the card, we're going to use a second generation stamping for step 1 and 2, as shown here in the images. So to create a second generation, you need to stamp off. So you're first stamping off onto scrap piece of paper and then making that second generation print on your basic white card. So you're stamping off and then onto your card. So I'm doing that for step 1 or stamp 1. To start building the pansy. Now I'm up to stamp 2. I love the Pansy Patch Stamp Set. It is specifically designed for crafters from beginner to avid level to build on an image with two-step stamping or more, and also for precision stamping. The see-through feature allows us to do this with ease. Quick note and invite for Australian residents to email me your expressions of interest if you'd like to be a V's Cards VIP. You'll find out information about in-house classes in Melbourne and also remote learning classes, as well as upcoming markets and fundraisers V's Cards is involved in. Membership is free and you'll find out about Stampin' Up promotions as well as exclusive specials from V's Cards. To become a V's Cards VIP, simply email me your expressions of interest. My address will be in the description below. Okay, back to the project. We are now up to stamp 3, and I'm going to do first generation stamping, so I won't be stamping off for stamp 3, so straight from ink to paper. And if you're confused about the numbers, if you have a look at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see that I've labelled the different stamps that I'm using to build the pansy. And remember, I've numbered each stamp according to the order of use. Measurements for this project will be in the description below. You can purchase pre-cut and measured kits from V's Cards. Just email me your expressions of interest about remote learning. My email address is in the description below. To finish building the pansy image, I'm using the last stamp, stamp 5, and just centering the middle of the pansies. Next up, I'm going to use some Granny Apple green ink to ink up the leaves. I'm not going to use the second stamp to create two-step stamping for the leaves. I'm just going to keep it simple. To create an extra border, I'm going to use the Granny Apple green cardstock, which is slightly larger than the basic white cardstock, and layer that onto the Daffodil Delight card base. So you could do a variation of this card and use a different colour border, such as the Highland heather. I like to set out the layers on my card front before I adhere them together, just so I have an idea of how it's going to look. And as you can see, one of my border layers is heavily die cut. This is a great way of saving cardstock, because you're only really using the outside of that border and nobody's going to see the inside of that cardstock. So now I'm just adhering everything together one layer at a time. So it's basic layering technique that I'm doing now. I like to use my liquid adhesive as it's easy to use and there is some wiggle room to adjust the card position if required. Ahead of time I have pre-stamped this sentiment and then I pre-punched it using the double oval punch. In future videos I'll talk about punches and how to best use them. To give the sentiment some pop, I'm going to use some dimensionals. Next up, I'm going to tie a bow with the ribbon. I'm going to create 2 bunny ears and then tie a knot using those bunny ears, and I will adjust the ends and the bunny ears according to how I would like the bow to sit, and then I will trim it using some sharp scissors. When adhering a bow to a card front, I like to make the bow up first and then press it onto the mini glue dot roll and then carefully peel it off. Now, because this ribbon is really lightweight, it came off really quickly with a mini glue dot stuck at the back of it, so I didn't need to worry about the mini glue dot remaining on the roll. But in some cases, especially if the ribbon is a lot heavier in weight, you will need to do a slow peel to ensure that you are peeling off the mini glue dot from the roll onto the bow. I really love my pink and purple, so I couldn't resist adding some pastel pearls to my card front as well. We have covered quite a few techniques in this short video. We will revisit these techniques in future videos. So don't panic about learning all these techniques at once if you're a beginner. You can always pause and replay some parts of the video as well. In future videos we'll be looking at bundles and the coordinating die that goes with this stamp set. The stamp set alone is great and so too is a die, but when they are purchased together as a bundle, you are offered a 10% discount. Well, I sure hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you like it, please click on the like, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to my channel and click on that bell icon so that you'll be notified for all future VScards videos. Thanks so much for watching and happy crafting.